The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
Moses, I'm thirsty, Moses. Can I get some? We need water.
If only we had died out here with our brothers when they fell dead before the Lord.
Because in Egypt, we had like water, we had figs, we had pomegranates, we had grapes, man. We were living the life. Can we go back, please, Moses?
Moses, why you bring God's people out into the wilderness so that we and our livestock should die?
I need water.
Moses, take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community, so they and their livestock can drink.
Water!
Moses, why did you bring us out of Egypt?
If only we had died out here with our brothers when they fell dead before the Lord.
Look at these people. Again, they're complaining about water. I can't take this no more. They're so ungrateful.
Moses, I'm thirsty, Moses. Can I get some? We need water.
Listen, you rebels. Must we bring you water from this rock?
Moses, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them.
When God gives us instructions, He intends for us to follow them. However, we have the free will to decide how or even if we are going to follow these instructions. But no matter the path we choose, the action will have a result, either a blessing or a curse. Moses, the leader of the Israelites, was very familiar with these principles, and he even found himself on the wrong side of them. No one is above the laws of God. In this episode, we are discussing Numbers chapters 18 through 21. Be blessed. All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here where we break down the Bible in terms that young people can understand, I guess.
I mean, just speaking from a young person perspective, like we ain't trying to put too much. Like I feel like some people is overdo it, like just trying to make the Bible, like just trying to keep it holy and just reverence it. Like it's overdo it and it's come off too formal, but really and truly, this is something you have to use for your everyday life. Not everybody. It's not going to be useful, the super formal view of it for everybody, because some people life just is informal in no type of way, you know what I'm saying? Like they're just regular, or maybe consider them to be just real people. So we try to give it a real example, especially from a young person perspective.
Most definitely. So hopefully everyone had a great week. Thank you, God, for bringing us through another week of trials, tribulations, and also blessing us with the many blessings that you just abound. If you're following along with us, you know that we're in the book of Numbers, which is a travel log of the children of Israel's journey from Sinai to the Promised Land. In the last episode, we saw a rebellion arose in the Israelite camps with Korah, who was Moses' cousin, who was also from the tribe of Levi, who said essentially, Moses, who made you Lord over the assembly? Aren't we all holy? You've gone too far, Moses. And we see how God dealt swiftly with this rebellion. But it just goes to show like how the hearts and minds of some of the people in the camp of Israel were. There was a lot of rebellion going on. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of distrust because, like we said, they made it up to the promised land, but through their own unfaithfulness, they were essentially punished to wander around for 40 more years until everyone who thought that they couldn't conquer the land had died off. And so we see at that point things got a little tense. They were saying, you know what? So that original group said, you know what? Okay, yeah, now we're going to go fight and conquer them. They died. Korah rose up in rebellion. The earth itself swallowed up and ate him. Well, shouldn't say ate, but you know what I mean. Like the earth swallowed him up. Yeah, consumed him. He was buried alive in the most literal sense ever. Mm-hmm. And then after that, some Israelites again rose up and was like, Moses, you caused Korah die. But through all this, Moses was humble. He begged for their pardon, told Aaron to offer sacrifices for atonement of their sins. Mm-hmm. But we see throughout all this rebellion, at minimum 15,000 people died. Yep. So it definitely had its consequences. And you would think people would learn going forward to not quarrel, to not grumble against God.
All right, so this is the book of Numbers, right? They start off with the census. It's been a few deaths since that census. Mm-hmm. And I like I ended the pod last week saying it's a hard issue, bro. Like these people, they heart ain't been rehabilitated. So it's the same heart, just a different day. Mm-hmm. You understand? Needless to say, we shouldn't expect any changes from these people too, you know.
We shouldn't.
But anywho, we started off in Numbers 18.
Chapter 18, where it essentially talks about some of the duties in the priests and of Levites. Again. Mm-hmm. But just to me, I think this is just overemphasizing the Bible just to show the importance of the priests and Levites, what they were really called to do and how important their task really was. Because, I mean, we've said in the past, nothing's in the Bible by chance. Nothing's in the Bible without reason. So, to me, the mere fact that it is repeated again and broken down a little bit deeper again shows how important this was to God to make sure that it made it into the Bible.
Mm-hmm. And then now, I could see why it's coming up again because we just had
Levites.
Yeah, there's just a lot of drama within the Levites camp. So they lost a good amount of Levites just right then and there. And so now it'd have to be a little reorganization. And so now God is reiterating the duties of the Levites so that people could kind of understand their roles. You understand? And how serious and how responsible you guys are for the atonement of the camp. Here it is. Last episode, we talk about how just the general people in general, they were accusing Moses falsely of being the reason for Korah's death. And God just put a plague on them. Like he ain't waste too much time, bro. Like plague instantly. And Moses had to tell Aaron, yo, hurry up, atone for their sins so that we can save them. And so now in this chapter, it's nothing like to go into a deep dive on. It's pretty straightforward. God is going into to the duties of the priests and the Levites, just basically. That's chapter 18. Chapter 19 is kind of like a continuation because now it talks about the cleansing power and the cleansing characteristics of water and how they use water in certain cleanses. Like you sprinkle water during this time for this reason. And this is just like a supplementary thing that goes along with the offerings that the Levites are going to make. And so you all can read that. It's nothing too deep for us to expound on. It's all straightforward. It's similar to what we've seen already in this book and then also in Leviticus and in Exodus.
Yeah, like I mean, a couple of things I just want to point out too. At this point, you can see where the law was essentially saying, I'm giving you the priesthood as a gift. Anyone else who comes near the sanctuary must be put to death. So he's saying, okay, the rest of the Israelite camp, they're not even allowed to come near the sanctuary anymore. And the priest said, you guys shouldn't really consider it a burden. It's actually a gift that I'm giving you. Like it's a sacred duty. You should be honored and humble.
And then on top of that, it's incentives that came with that too. You understand? Because they did go into tithes, tithing, offerings for the priests.
Mm-hmm. And the next thing I point out to the reason why was because the Levites, in particularly, we mentioned this a few podcasts ago and several times later, but the Levites, they were a tribe, but they were counted amongst the tribes of Israel. So their whole specific duty was the altar and being priests. So they didn't have any inheritance. They didn't have any land in where they were going to conquer. Because we see even in 18 verse 20, the Lord said to Aaron, "You will have no inheritance in their land, nor will you have any share among them. I am your share. I am your inheritance among the Israelites." So when the Levites were set apart, they were literally like set apart in the children of Israel, because the tribe of Levi, as we see before when we were naming off the people, like the tribes who went to go spy in the land, Levi wasn't among them. We see when the census was recorded, the Levites weren't among them. The Levites had their own separate census to know how much Levites there were, how much people in the priestly line there were. So they were really just set apart, and there were no warriors who were from the tribe of Levi either. So it was specifically the rest of the children of Israel had to help sustain the Levites, because their whole focus was to be priests and to care for the sanctuary and the tabernacle.
And it did came with incentives. Verse 21, "I give to the Levites all the tithes in Israel as their inheritance in return for work. In return for the work that they do while serving at the tent of meeting." Stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting read. It's tailored directly towards the Levites. Definitely these next two chapters going more so into the importance, because when you think about it, like God put together this community, right, this country, but it wasn't no police. You see what I'm saying? So truthfully, the only law, it wasn't like laws of the land, it was just God's laws. So they were considered like crimes and stuff like that. If you commit a crime, some crimes are punishable by death. We see in the last episode when someone was gathering wood on the Sabbath, I think it was last episode, maybe 2 episodes ago.
This last episode.
And God sentenced them to be stoned to death. God could have just killed them, you know what I'm saying? But sentenced them to be stoned to death, stuff like that. But the Levites, they had a responsibility for the rest of the camp. Everybody else can kind of do their own thing, but the Levites were called to a higher standard. And God is saying, we all occupying different rules, and these are some of the incentives in being a part of the Levite clan.
Yeah, so and then you said in verse 19, it starts off with a red heifer that has to be without blemish, has to be sacrificed. Eleazar the priest to be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. And so we get into, like you said, like the water of cleansing. A man who was clean is to gather the ashes of the heifer, because the person who sacrificed it would have been ceremonially unclean. Whoever touches a dead body of anyone will be unclean for 7 days. He must purify himself with the water on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And then he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself on the 3rd and 7th days, he will be not clean. Whoever touches the dead body of anyone who fails to purify himself defies the Lord's tabernacle. That person must be cut off from Israel, because the water of cleansing has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. His uncleanliness remains on him. And to me, it goes back to show when we were even talking about in Leviticus how death was just opposite of God's life. So we knew from Leviticus that if you touched a dead body, you were around a dead body, you would be unclean. And this is God going over again, like, hey, this is how you can cleanse yourself when you're found in this predicament. Just, here are the steps to become clean again from doing this. And we say that it's part of God's grace, like saying, yeah, you might be unclean in this current state, but here's how you can get back to me. Here's how you can be one with me again if you was to do this certain thing.
And now, since we're on the conversation of water, we have a rather unfortunate story, ladies and gentlemen. This is also one of them stories that if you've heard of the Israelites and their pilgrimage, you are aware of this. And to me, it's an unfortunate story, but it does show God's justness and the fact that no one is above discipline, regardless. So, we just about to get into it. Numbers chapter 20. In the first month, the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. There, Miriam died and was buried. Rest in peace, Miriam. Now there was Rip. Now there was sleep in peace. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. We've seen this. This is like the 3rd time specifically to water. Anywho, they quarreled with Moses and said, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord.
Mercy.
So these people like die, bro.
I don't know why they so obsessed with death.
I don't know, bro. Like one time it's like, oh, you bring us out here to die. The next one's like, oh, only if we'd have died before.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't relate. I ain't been in these situations and things, but I just like, man, y'all just ain't changing. You understand what I'm saying? But anywho, the verse 4. Why did you bring the Lord's community into the wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? Once again, they putting the onus on Moses. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink.
I know the Bible don't record everything, right? I sometimes just wonder like why Moses just didn't get super real with them.
Right, just be like, hey. All this
What you mean
complaining
me?
ain't doing nothing. Yeah.
What you mean me? Let's walk through all of these events that you're talking about. Okay, we came out of Egypt. You guys lack faith. You guys quarrel about food and manna. I mean food and water. God gave you water last time. He's been providing for you all this whole time. God, you complain about food. God gave you manna from heaven. God gave you quail. We got there. Y'all lacked faith again. So we couldn't inherit the land. So I'm out here stuck in this desert with you guys. I don't think you guys realize that, but I'm out here with you guys. Y'all worrying about where y'all food come from. I know God got to sustain you. I ain't complaining. Why y'all follow me this whole time? Every time y'all back was against the wall, the Lord provided. Now y'all still again with the same compliments. Like this is the same thing you guys complaining for. Like when are you guys gonna grow up? You see, last time was the last episode, 2 episodes ago, where God said like, how long will these people be in contempt against me? Like how long will they quarrel against me? Like they have seen more than enough to know that I will sustain them, but they still lack this faith. Like how long will this continue?
True. And then after that, it still continues more. It's crazy.
Y'all just saw people got swallowed up by the earth. Y'all see fire came down and consumed them. Y'all see after this, y'all quarrel again on a plague, took out 14,700 people. Almost instantly.
And they just don't get it. And that was the last time they quarreled against Moses.
It's like y'all just forget your loved ones dying like flies.
I know, bro. I don't know what does inspire them to do that, bro. I know, cause and then I feel like it's bro, it's so hectic, dog. Everything was going bad, like just adding to them, just acting more irrationally. Verse 6, Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance to the tent of meeting and fell face down. Once again,
Moses too humble.
and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord
Mercy.
said to Moses, what you just gonna say?
I said, just mercy. Keep going.
Yeah. Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes,
Speak.
and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink. So Moses took his staff. Wait, let me just rewind. Last time, God tell him strike the rock, right? The first time. No, well, the first time it was impure water, so they put a log in the water.
Yeah.
And the water is pure. The next time they tell him strike the rock. This time he say, speak to the rock.
Yep.
So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, listen, you rebels. Must we bring you water out of this rock?
Then what Moses proceeded to do.
Moses proceeded to go to be insubordinate. Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice.
Not once.
Twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. Now,
Here's the kicker, ladies and gentlemen.
boy, right out the next verse says, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them.
Mercy.
So instantly, that thing that Moses just did by not following God's instructions cost him actually getting into the land, the promised land. So Moses walked a fine line this whole time. Moses was favorable. We didn't really see too much where, like post burning bush, post Egypt, where Moses wasn't on one accord with God. Everything we've seen everything we've seen thus far were the Israelites at fault. The Israelites causing their own problems with God And Moses more than likely just pleading on behalf of them. Here's this time, Moses pleaded on behalf of them. And I can understand it's frustrating, bro. This the third time he had a water-related thing, bro. In years, you have to drink water every day. You understand what I'm saying? Come on now. Y'all know y'all can get water. What's the big complaint thing about? And how y'all coming at me still.
Mm-hmm. That's how you say it.
Die, man. I wish I had died, bro. I wish we could stay in Egypt, bro. You bring us, not even God, you bring us out here to die. And so even the past 2 episodes, we see where Moses, where his patience was getting thinner and thinner. We could see this happening. You know what I'm saying? When he ain't even plead to the end with Korah. It come a time he was like, yeah, God, anyway, don't accept they offering.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Like he ain't super plead for them or anything like that. And this time, Moses ended up taking the frustration that he has for the Israelites out on God. Because if he had spoken to the rock as God commanded, well, first of all, it's a reason God tell him to speak to the rock.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you could see this miracle. This would have been the first time this ever happened. And they would, and they would know within their heart this only could come from God. Because who could, in the desert, who could make water come out of a rock? And especially after you just finished talking from God. Now, by you striking this rock, it seems like you caused this water to come out. And then at the same time, even if it didn't come off like that, God didn't tell you strike the rock. He tell you speak to the rock. This was specific instructions. And then it's the same thing when God tell them put all the staffs up, and then the staffs, Aaron's staff grew, and like it grew like flowers or vines.
Buds and blossoms and almonds.
And almonds, right? So it's the reason God tell them to put this out here, because when they see this, God know how to touch everybody's heart, God know what could get through to you. But Moses, in an arc of anger, rightful anger, but it's how you expressed it that cost you the promised land, truthfully. And the reason when I first read this a few years ago, I was like, I feel bad for Moses. But at the same time, you can't say that God ain't just. You can't say that God is pick favorites. Moses, even though you walked this fine line this whole time and you did so much more than a lot of other patriarchs had to do, you held a great responsibility. But you're not above punishment. If you do something wrong, there are consequences for your actions. And then, like, you could think about a lot of pastors, religious leaders, even people who are Christians. You could feel like you are above consequence from God. Oh, no. I am this big pastor. I've achieved so much for God. But that don't mean that I can't let loose every now and then. You might feel like you have done so much, and you might feel like in me ministering, I don't have to work on my relationship with God because I minister. But you could easily get lost in that, right? You could feel like I done so much for God. God will forgive me for this thing I doing. You understand what I'm saying? God forgive you, but that don't mean you ain't getting the consequences that come with this. Mm-hmm. You understand? That don't mean you above consequence because you doing stuff for God. Because at the end of the day, God still detests sin, regardless. And so we see Moses being the person at the forefront. And at the same time, God could have said, all right, just so Moses don't look bad because he do so much, I can still let him in the promised land. But at the end of the day, it's the principle. You disobey me.
It's the principle too, and then Moses was held to a higher standard than the rest of the children of Israelites. That's the first thing we got to remember too. Like, you are their leader, and I gave you specific instructions, even though no one else knew what your instructions was besides you, but you knew what you were supposed to do. And then Moses' whole statement was kind of founded in distrust and unbelief. Like, God would tell you speak to the rock, and Moses was like, man, I'm not even going to speak to this rock. I'm going to hit it twice. Mm-hmm. And like, even what he said. Listen, you rebels, must we bring water out of this rock? Who is we? Mm-hmm. You ain't got nothing to do with this, Moses.
That's true.
You have nothing to do with this water coming out of this rock. Only thing you do is just a pawn. This is God's miracle that he's using you as a vessel to, but God is bringing the water for this rock. You have nothing to do with this, Moses. Nothing. Nothing. And that's why God said, because you do not trust me enough. Like, it's like, you can't even say, oh, you're taking a stretch, but Moses, it was rooted in trust. God himself said, you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in sight of the Israelites. You will not bring them into the community of the land I've given them. God's saying, you ain't trust me enough to do what I say. I tell you, speak to the rock. In your mind, would be like, bro, how could I possibly speak to the rock and what's coming? God saying, but that ain't for you to worry about.
At all.
You taking this on yourself now. You who was humble this whole time, not trying to bear this burden. Now you're trying to bear the burden alone. And I just tell you, speak to the rock. You was doing so good. You was almost doing so good. Okay, it says, rock bring forth water, Lord, amen. Something like that.
Simple as that. You actually take the harder route. It was actually much easier to just talk to the rock than strike it.
And to strike it twice. That just shows like, how much anger you was into, but like, you not hit it once and you nothing come out. I'm gonna hit this thing again.
Like you was in deep. You was in deep just now.
Like God, and the thing is like God ain't like stop the water from coming. God still say, okay, I'll let the water come because I ain't gonna like chastise the Israelites right now because of your mess up. But now you have to suffer for your consequences because I held you at a higher standard than this. Now because of your trust and now because of your lack of faith. And see, like you said, God's a faithful God because think about it, all the other, I guess, elders or whoever in the children of Israel, all the people over 20 who lacked the faith, they were not permitted to enter. Now God's saying you lacked faith, even on this one occurrence, you lacked the faith, but I gotta be honest, I gotta be fair. You can't enter the promised land now.
Sorry, bro.
And to me, I think that's a blow. I can imagine most in this humanity, like that's a blow to you.
Because truthfully,
what's the reward? I feel like
right, because you wouldn't have been in this predicament if you hadn't been so merciful to them. You see what I say? No. If you didn't let them get what they deserved the 4 or 5 times when God had proposed to, you wouldn't have been in this because they trigger you to react that way. And you know what message this is telling me? Like, even though someone could influence you to sin, at the end of the day, you still sin. You understand what I'm saying? Like it don't hold up in court that, they caused me to that. I act out of anger because this person frustrated me. Like, this person frustrated me, so I committed murder. This person he did fuel you to do that, but you still have to go and do it, type of thing. You understand what I'm saying? Now, murder is an extreme situation. This is a less extreme situation, but I feel like the premise or the concept of it is still the same thing. Even though they tempted you and brought you to this point, you still should have restrained, because from there, it ain't between you and them no more. It's between you and God. You understand? And so in a moment of passion, you actually took matters into your own hands, and you actually mess up. You actually stood in the way of what God was trying to do.
And that's go for it.
No, I was gonna say, and that comes with a consequence.
And like that's just powerful too, because you see, like even if the people were grumbling, usually at this point God would like have judgment against the people, but God's saying, hold on, yeah, they grumbling and quarreling, but you are my representatives. You on there, and you guys are my representatives, and y'all ain't being a good representation of me right now. So now, forget the people. I gotta deal with you guys. You realize it's like almost like the first time directly where the children of Israel didn't have to suffer any consequences for the quarreling.
I know. It was always that. And they'd already crossed the line with God. Where it's like, your reward already taken away from you, bro. Everything from here just could be death. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the consequences before, it was like, all right, or even before, it's like, I can do this, and then you can know I am God. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna not put plagues on you and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? If you act a certain way. Nowadays, it's like, bro, because y'all crying, I move y'all, step aside, man. Step aside. I dealing with the people who grumbling and complaining. But this time, Moses just jump in front of the bullet for them. You know what I mean? Like, this is about to be their issue, but Moses make it his issue. And from a human standpoint, I probably would have break way before you, Moses. You understand? But that don't justify it. And that's the end. That's the thing at the end of the day. It's like when we was reading it's either Exodus or Leviticus, when they were saying like, just because somebody poor, that don't mean you should. Leviticus. It was Leviticus, right? So just because someone's poor, that don't mean you should find favor with them if they're on trial. Just because they could use the money, if they ain't in the right, you still have to give the rich person the right. You see what I'm saying? And it was on bearing false witness and stuff like that. And that's truly what it is. You know what I mean? Just so, in fairness, no matter what, just because Moses is righteous, that don't mean we got to bend the rules for Moses. You know?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just, I don't want to say sad, but just...
It's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. Because the very people you were saving led to your own downfall to a certain extent.
Bro. I could be real, bro. To me, that's sad. That's sad because you put in so much time and effort just to fumble the bag at the end.
And then when you're so close.
And you ain't fumble it off your own will. You was inspired. You was helped. Someone helped you fumble the bag, essentially. But at the same time, you can't take responsibility of him because you could all this time you didn't fumble the bag, so you had it in your ability not to fumble.
And it was like self-causing too, because you just let it get to you at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're gonna get to this, but the next thing I want to point out too, as you're gonna see, like Moses still was doing his job as a leader with still faithfulness and dedication, even though he knew he wasn't gonna enter the promised land anymore. Like it didn't change his resolve. Mm-hmm. But he was just like resigned to his fate. Like, and to me, that takes like a true leader to do that too. Because in my mind, bro, I
ain't got nothing else to lose. I mean,
if I ain't reaping the benefits of this no more, bro, forget y'all.
Right.
Forget y'all, bro. Y'all done cost me my blessing.
Cause where I leading y'all to?
It's a wrap now.
Where I leading y'all to, bro? We ain't know where to go. We don't have a destination. Death is our destination. Like I don't need y'all to die. Mm-hmm. I can die by myself. Y'all can die by yourself. You see what I'm saying?
Oh my.
I mean, verse 13. These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and where he was proved holy among them. And that's true. So, verse 14. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, Edom is the descendants of Esau, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so these guys are the descendants of Jacob, and they send a message to the descendants of Edom. So this is over 400 years, by the way. This is what your brother Israel says, and that's why they say your brother. Mm-hmm. You know about all the hardships that have come on us.
Well documented. Everyone knew when you guys were in Egypt.
Exactly. Our ancestors went down into Egypt, and we lived there many years. The Egyptians mistreated us and our ancestors, but when we cried out to the Lord, he heard our cry and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. Now we are here at Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your city. We will not go through any field or vineyard, or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway and not turn to the right or to the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom answered, You may not pass through here. If you try, we will march out and attack you with the sword. The Israelites replied, We will go along the main road. And if we or our livestock drink any of your water, we will pay for it. We only want to pass through on foot, nothing else. Again they answered, You may not pass through. Then Edom came out against them with a large and powerful army. Since Edom refused to let them go through their territory, Israel turned away from them. I don't want no smoke, is what Israel said.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing I wanted to point out too, because it's kind of, not really stated in the Bible, but at this point, they're already like 38 years into their journey after the people, after the first round. So like now at this point, like it's a transition in numbers where they're actually getting ready to head back to the promised land. So it's like, 38 of their 40-year thing. So now you see they back to Edom and stuff. So they back on the outskirts of Canaan, starting to head back that way.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. The whole Israelite community set out from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. At Mount Hor, near the border of Edom, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land I give the Israelites because both of you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah.
Mm-hmm. Remember that, Aaron?
Yep.
I ain't forget.
Right. You was there. You was our accomplice. Get Aaron and his son Eleazar and take them up Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar. For Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will die there. Moses did as the Lord commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of the whole community. Moses removed Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar. And Aaron died there on top of the mountain. R.I.P. to Aaron.
Mercy.
Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. And when the whole community learned that Aaron had died, all the Israelites mourned for 30 days.
It's like I feel kind of sad for Aaron too. But Aaron, we've seen him falter in times of when pressure was applied.
We have not seen him not falter.
Like after Miriam, though, he only won though. He was on Moses' side for the rest of the rebellions.
Mm-hmm. But this is the thing. Aaron, it's funny that Aaron and Moses is the reason why Aaron couldn't get to the promised land, because Aaron was by himself with the calf. Mm-hmm. He was with Miriam when she was trying to clown Moses. And then he was with Moses in rebellion. So like Aaron just was in the mix at all times by himself and with his two siblings. it's also surprising to me that he wasn't with Korah. You see what I'm saying? But their beef was to Aaron. Korah was angry at Aaron and Moses type of thing. So even Aaron, like Aaron did a lot of great things. Like I ain't just go
minimize him.
You know, understand? I ain't keep insulting him because like it's like a joke to me. The fact that he was on the wrong side of history a few times, you know what I mean? But truthfully, Aaron had a lot of responsibility on his hands. Aaron was like the highest high priest in the Levites. You understand what I'm saying? He was set apart. He was the leader, definitely. And so in Numbers chapter 20, we can see where Moses lost onto his siblings. Not saying that this was around the same time, but it's in the same chapter. They capsulized those two deaths in Numbers 20. So right now I could see Moses probably feeling lonely or probably getting anxious as to the day he's gonna pass away. You understand? Because it's imminent, you know. And I'm sure plenty of people passing away, not us naturally, but if you saying this around 38 years. In 2 more years, everybody of that generation is gonna be gone. So you only got but 2 more years left in this journey. Moses, I'm talking about specifically.
Not anyone else who still was alive from that time.
True. Yeah. But if you was 20 back then, you only got but 2 more years, and it's crazy when you know your expiration date.
Yeah, you know the day, but you definitely know this the year. Something goblin.
Yeah, but you know what date you ain't gonna exceed. Like what time frame you ain't gonna live past. Sure.
So now in chapter 21 of Numbers, when the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that Israel was coming along the road to Atharim, he attacked the Israelites and captured some of them. Then the Israelites made this vow to the Lord: if you deliver these people into our hands, we will totally destroy their cities. The Lord listened to the Israel's plea and gave the Canaanites over to them. They completely destroyed them and their towns. So the place was named Hormah. And it's so funny. Isn't Hormah the same place that they were beaten the first time?
Yeah, and that's what I was looking up just now, because when they go on to fight the Canaanites, the Hivites, when they was trying to climb up the hill to go fight them, they said they were beaten from there to, I think it was Hormah.
Numbers 14 verse 45.
Right.
Then the Amalekites and Canaanites who lived in the hill country came down and attacked them. They beat them down all the way to Hormah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm painting this picture though. So now when y'all actually have faith,
I'll be
what
the
happened?
same people.
In the exact same location, y'all actually have a victory. This could have been 2 years ago. Well, 38 years ago.
Yeah.
Pretty much 40 years ago. But now y'all seeing, when y'all actually have faith, when y'all have God on y'all side, what happens?
And this time they the Canaanites, they initiated the fight. And so they come to God, because people was already starting to be captured in them. They come to God and it's like, hey, if you deliver us, we could destroy them. And God was already, that was in the plan already, to destroy all of these people who have been enemies for centuries now. And so like you say, bro, when you all have faith in God, you all actually get to accomplish what the Lord promised. Truthfully, and this also proves that they was on their way back. Because they wouldn't have had to been traveling through here if they'd already passed, unless they was coming back.
And you could see, if you look at a historical map, the kingdom of Edom would be right under where the tribe settled. So a lot would be right under the kingdom of Israel, Judah, all of them. So, and it even makes sense too, because we're going to see when we go down where else they was traveling to out. Okay, so now, Verse 4. They traveled from Mount Hor along the route to the Red Sea. And to go around Edom. So you see now, you say, okay, they don't want us to come through Edom, so you got to go around Edom. But the people grew impatient on their way. They spoke against God and against Moses.
What a surprise. This is so shocking. Wow, this isn't like them at all.
Stiff-necked people. Why have you brought us out of Egypt? Bro, I'm like, bro, y'all have been out of Egypt for decades now. Get over it.
I'm telling you, bro.
Please.
I'm telling you.
For my sake.
No lie. How y'all even remember what Egypt like, bro? Like, that was too long ago for y'all to care for real. And think about it though. You think you could have this argument for decades now, bro? Oh, I wish I was in Egypt. Bro, let it go for true. For true.
Please.
By now you should know you ain't going back to Egypt.
And then by now you should know that God still supply all your needs.
Facts. And by now you should know that you had ample time to go back on your own if you so desire.
Leave the camp.
Do you need a leader to go? What? Ain't nobody holding you hostage?
Literally.
Man.
So now what happened? They also said, there's no bread, there's no water, and we detest this miserable food. So now what's miserable, Damano?
Gotta be, bro. And the Lord sent venomous snakes among them. They bit the people, and many Israelites died. So to me, this is like a purge. Like, so in 38 years, whoever was left.
That's the final cleansing.
Yeah, that's the final cleansing. That's the way. That's the way I see it. Whoever was left out of y'all complaining people. All right. Yeah, we can take care of y'all.
But something I don't want
To pass over.
to go over people's heads. The Lord sent venomous snakes among them. I just want people to realize too, while they were in this desert for the 40 years, God was still protecting them.
That's true.
Their clothes didn't wear out. Their sandals didn't wear out. All the animals and wild beasts of the desert didn't attack them.
Exactly. And there's plenty of them. Like, plenty venomous snakes you could run into in the desert.
The desert notorious for rattlesnakes, vipers, all kind of scorpions and stuff. None of these things were attacking them while they were in the desert. I don't want it to go over people's head.
And you notice, they never complain about stuff like that, bro. We ain't got no clothes. We never da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Because you know they like to complain.
Yeah, because you know they like to complain. Complain about anything. And it's just the same complaints over and over as if it ain't a quick fix for this, bro. Like,
Yeah, so what happened now? Then the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned. We spoke against the Lord and against you. Prayed to the Lord that pray the Lord will take the snakes away from us. So Moses prayed for the people.
Because they was out of pocket. You understand what I'm saying? But a lot of times it's take the consequence for them to actually be able to admit it.
This almost reminds me of when each time Pharaoh wanted to plague, bring in Moses. Bring in Moses. So the Lord told Moses to make a snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live. So Moses made the bronze snake and put it on the pole. Then anyone who was bitten by the snake looked on the bronze snake and live. What do you think was the significance of that? Or why do you think God told Moses to specifically do that?
I don't know. I think that's another one of them things where it's only by the grace of God that this end up happening. Because what type of antidote is that? You know what I mean? Like, what's the difference between looking at something and not looking at something? And why is looking at something of healing powers? There's no way to explain that because it's a miracle involved. You know? Yeah.
I think it was a test of faith too. Like, okay, all you guys keep on grumbling and bickering. Like, okay, so the same thing that was used as a weapon of like destruction, essentially. Now, if you want to live, you gotta look upon this snake, a bronze snake. Look upon it and live. If you have faith that you actually gonna be healed, look at it and you'll find healing. Because think about people like probably say, bro, what is this snake gonna do to me if a poisonous snake just bite me? Why am I gonna look at an image of a bronze snake?
Exactly.
God's saying, bro, like this is the instructions I given y'all. If you have faith, you're gonna do it. So I think it was more of a faith thing. Like, how much faith do you have to look upon this, knowing that in and of itself, it can't do anything for you. It ain't like you getting an antidote or anti-venom shot or anything like that. Ain't like that happening. But if you look upon the snake, you'll live. So, verse 10, the Israelites moved on and camped at Obath. They set out from Obath and camped near Abarim in the desert that faces Moab towards the sunrise, for they moved on and camped in the Zered Valley. So, if you look at a map back in ancient times, I gotta remember to probably put this on screen on YouTube, but Edom is south of Moab on the other side of where Jerusalem and stuff would be today. So you can see that they're like gearing up to go around the promised land, but they taking it essentially the long way around to get back over. Because remember, I don't even want to spoil it, but they had to cross a body of water to get over. But that's essentially where they are now. So you see even more proof that they're heading back up to the promised land now. Just the historical context of the Bible is that you could decipher where they at. They set out from there and camped alongside Arnon, which is the desert extended into the Amorite territory. Arnon is the border of Moab, between the Moab and the Amorites. This is why the Book of Wars of the Lord says,
Sahad, in Safa and the ravines, the Arnon and the slopes of the ravines that led to the settlement of Ar and lie among the border of Moab. From there they continued on to Beer, the well the well where the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song. Spring up, O well, sing about it, about the well that the princes dug, that the nobles of the people sank, the nobles with scepters and staffs. Then they went from the wilderness to Matana, from Matana to Nahalil, from Nahalil to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley in Moab, where the top of Pisgah overlooks the wasteland. So then, but you don't think that's interesting that they reference this book, the book of the wars of the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it's one of them books that the ancient writings that did not make this canon, this biblical canon, which I have no interest of actually reading upon, truthfully, because I feel like the main story is just the passages, and then the battles is like a little commercial break or whatever. But yeah, anywho, verse 21, Israel sent messengers to say to Sihon, king of the Amorites, let us pass through your country.
So they right into the next king.
Mm-hmm. We will not.
The sheer diplomacy that was exhibited by the Israelites now.
I'm telling you, so nice. We will not turn aside into any field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. But Sihon would not let Israel pass through his territory. He mustered his entire army and marched out into the wilderness against Israel. When he reached Nakhaz, he fought with Israel. Israel, however, put him to the sword and took over his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, but only as far as the Amorites, because their border was fortified. Lucky. Israel captured all the cities of the Amorites and occupied them, including Heshbon and all its surrounding settlements. Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and had taken from him all his land as far as the Arnon. That is why the poets say, come to Heshbon and let it be rebuilt. Let Sihon's city be restored. Fire went out from Heshbon, a blaze from the city of Sihon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the citizens of Arnon's heights. Woe to you, Moab! You are destroyed, people of Chemosh. He has given up his sons as fugitives and his daughters as captives to Sihon, king of the Amorites, but we have overthrown them. Heshbon's dominion has been destroyed all the way to Dibon. We have demolished them as far as Nophah, which exceeds to Medeba. So Israelites settled in the land of the Amorites. After Moses had sent spies to Jazer, the Israelites captured its surrounding settlements and drove out the Amorites who were there. They then turned and went up along the roads toward Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, and his whole army marched out to meet them in battle at Edrei. The Lord said to Moses, do not be afraid of him, for I have delivered him into your hands, along with his whole army and his land. Do to him what you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. So they struck him down together with his sons and his whole army, leaving them no survivors, and they took possession of his land.
I just want to point out the demeanor change in the Israelites now.
Mm-hmm.
They're more emboldened. They have more faith, ironically. But you see how Moses even sent some spies now, and there wasn't even no battle report. They say, yeah, we got this.
Yep.
And God's saying, yeah, we got this. So they ain't even questioning, can we defeat these people or not? They rising up and they conquering. And they relying on God. So you see their whole demeanor has changed now. They've grown up a little bit. One would hope.
Yeah, so we could also see where the Canaanites get defeated. That was the first story with I think his name is Armon or some Arad, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Canaanites. And then we go down to verse 21 where he run into the king of the Amorites.
Mm-hmm.
They was defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So truthfully, the Lord already promised the Canaanites, Hivites, Amorites, Hivites, Jebusites, and stuff like that. And now we going through these kings, and we seeing how they ain't even coming for war. They saying, can we walk through? But what king would allow people to walk through? You don't know what they got up their sleeve, X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. So it's to get ahead of it, they're like, man, we might as well just get to war now, because it's probably what it could end up being anyway. But they ain't even know, bro. If you just to chill, they could have just walked through peacefully and everyone could stay alive, But yeah, they choose violence and they get violence. Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
They chose violence and got violence. But, so in this episode so far, we've seen one, really and truly, we saw in verse 18 the Levites, their importance. Definitely read on your own, do your own research. The same thing with chapter 19 with the water of cleansing. We saw Moses had a moment of weakness, but then it ultimately led to him and Aaron not being granted access into the land of Canaan, the promised land, the land that they brought the people out of Egypt. We saw how God is a fair God, because God said, you guys didn't listen to my instruction. You did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of Israel. Therefore, you will not be allowed to enter the community that I'll give them. And it's just so funny, because all that time you see God was Moses was begging for God to let them in, remember me, remember your promise. And God saying, yeah, I'm not even changing my promise to them. You just forfeited your right to enter the land of Canaan.
Truthfully.
And now we see the children of Israel quarreled again after that. You would think they would have learned, but then God let a plague of snakes come on them. People lost their lives, people died. But he also said, you know what? If you guys have faith, you could look at this bronze snake and you'll be healed. You wouldn't die. So anyone looked at that snake, they were able to live. And now we see they're getting ready back to enter in the land of Canaan. They're rounding back up. They're journeying through the land. They came to Moab. They first came to Edom. Edom said no. They journeyed around to Moab. They came to the Amorites, and God started to deliver the Canaanites into their hands. So some of these outside nations started to fall before the Israelites. But and it really just shows how when your faith is in God, God's gonna deliver your enemies into your hands. Hormah, the same place where they were defeated 38 years ago or 40 years ago, depending on the timeline, around that time, over 30 years ago, let's just go with that, is the same place now they had their first victory. In the exact same place, Hormah. And now you're saying, okay, well, why did it take so long? Because of their lack of faith. Because of their lack of faith made them to journey in the desert for 40 extra years, and they had to. Think about it. The Bible could have already started in Canaan. We could have already been set up. Moses could have already started. Everything we're about to get through in these next chapters could have already happened, but their lack of faith caused it to be prolonged.
Numbers 12, verse 3. Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. But every man has a breaking point. But the sad reality of it all is that there is no reward for disobeying God, especially if you're getting paid to do so. But we'll talk more about Balaam, Balak, and the talking donkey on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by Lyndell Juste, Dominic McFall, Isabelle Labbe, as well as your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.